NASCAR just blocked Cleetus McFarland from Talladega, and 5 days later, one of the biggest power sports brands in North America signed a multi-year deal built around his entire operation. That is not a comeback story. That is a signal. And the signal is this: the sanctioning body pumped the brakes, and the business world floored it. Polaris did not put a logo on a race car. They embedded themselves into the Freedom Factory operations, the off-road content, the fan experiences, the facility infrastructure, and the event structure of everything Cleetus McFarland has built. The Rockingham O'Reilly Series race drew 1.165 million viewers, up 12% in rating from the previous year. NASCAR knows those numbers. Polaris knows those numbers. And here is what nobody is saying out loud yet. The catch inside this deal is not what Cleetus gained. It is what he gave up. Stay with this, because what happens at the 70% mark of this story changes how you read everything that came before it. Cleetus McFarland is Garrett Mitchell. By April 2026, he had built 4.6 million YouTube subscribers around one specific identity: independent, chaotic, gearhead authenticity. The Freedom Factory in Florida, Crown Vic Chaos, the Freedom 500. Burnout culture, drag events, shop builds, and the kind of motorsports content that does not ask permission from anyone. He is not just a content creator. He is a brand, a track owner, a promoter, and now a contracted NASCAR driver in active competition with Richard Childress Racing. His audience does not passively watch. They physically show up. They buy tickets. They travel. They engage at a level that most traditional NASCAR sponsors would spend tens of millions of dollars trying to manufacture. Polaris did not need to manufacture it. They just needed to find the door, and Cleetus opened it. But before the Polaris story can be understood, Rockingham has to be understood. Because Rockingham is where this whole sequence started. Saturday, April 4th, 2026. Cleetus pulled double duty at Rockingham Speedway. The ARCA Menards Series East race in the morning, and his O'Reilly Auto Parts Series debut in the afternoon. The ARCA race produced his best finish in any NASCAR division ever. 4th place, running top 5 lap times, with his own crew shocked at the pace he was carrying. That result matters. It is the data point the critics keep choosing to minimize. Then came the O'Reilly race, when he started 35th out of 38 cars. On lap 4, a 3-wide situation going into turn 1 sent him sideways. He barely saved it, but the move cooked his tires immediately. Multiple spins followed. 1 caution flag. A speeding penalty on pit road. He finished 32nd, 6 laps behind race winner William Salter. He brought the car home in one piece and did not destroy anyone else's day. He completed 244 of 250 laps. That is the complete picture, not just the number at the end. NASCAR's official response came through John Probst and NASCAR President Steve O'Donnell. Probst stated that McFarland is currently approved for ARCA, Truck Series, and O'Reilly short tracks, but not yet super speedways in the O'Reilly Series. O'Donnell added that the process is evaluated race by race and that NASCAR wants to see continued progression before moving him forward. That is the official line. Here is why the debate refuses to die. Established NASCAR drivers spin, crash, misjudge corners, miss pit road, and wreck each other every single weekend. And none of them face a race-by-race approval process for the next venue on the schedule. Cleetus had one rough afternoon in his series debut and got held back from a super speedway. The standard being applied to him is visibly different from the standard applied to everyone else in the field. That asymmetry is what is fueling the fan frustration, and it is legitimate. Now here is where the numbers become impossible to argue with. At the Rockingham O'Reilly Series race on the CW drew a 0.65 rating and 1.165 million viewers, up 12% in rating and 11% in audience from the comparable event the previous year. Across the first 7 races of the 2026 season, the O'Reilly Series was averaging 1.282 million viewers, up 3.6% year-over-year, per reporting citing Sports Business Journal's Adam Stern. Those numbers do not prove Cleetus caused all of that growth independently. They prove he is part of a measurable momentum wave that the sport cannot afford to ignore. He is not just another name on the entry list. He is an audience magnet, and the data is in writing. Or ask yourself this question right now and drop your answer in the comments. Is NASCAR protecting the field, or protecting itself from having to explain why a YouTube creator is outperforming their marketing department? Because those are two different arguments, and the sport is only making one of them publicly. April 7th, 2026. Polaris officially announced a multi-year partnership with Cleetus McFarland and his motorsports community. One critical clarification before anything else. Neither Polaris nor Cleetus has publicly disclosed a specific dollar figure. The multi-million framing circulating in media coverage is not a confirmed reported amount. What is confirmed is the scope, and the scope is where this story lives. Reed Wilson, president of Polaris Off-Road Vehicles, said Cleetus brings energy, passion, and authenticity that reflects what American motorsports is all about. Cleetus responded in his own register. Polaris fits his world of freedom, horsepower, and having a good time. That is the surface version. It reads like a standard brand endorsement. 2 names, 2 quotes, 1 press release. But read the language underneath it, and the deal reveals itself as something structurally different from anything in Cleetus's history. Polaris is being integrated into the entire Cleetus ecosystem. Their own official language makes this explicit. Operations, content, experiences, Freedom Factory activations, and creating new ways for fans to engage with the action. Sir Power Sports Business described it as the partnership that opens the gates for content and experiences with his community. Off-Road Extreme framed it as Polaris jumping directly into the chaos of the Freedom Factory to amplify builds, events, and hands-on fan involvement. Within days of the announcement, a YouTube launch tied to the partnership showed Cleetus surprising the Freedom Factory crew with an all-new Polaris off-road fleet. Reports confirmed the partnership would help upgrade equipment at the Freedom Factory in Florida. The deal was not announced in abstract PR language and then left there. It started physically changing the tools and infrastructure of his operation immediately. That is the tell. That is how you know this is not a sponsorship. It is an ownership stake in the vibe. Here is the pivot. Yet here is the part nobody is saying. Cleetus McFarland built his entire identity on one non-negotiable foundation: independent chaos. No corporate voice in the room. No brand approval process for what gets filmed. No partner with financial interest in what the Freedom Factory becomes. That independence is not just a personality trait. It is the product. It is the reason 4.6 million people subscribed. It is the reason Polaris wanted the deal in the first place. And now Polaris has fingerprints on the operations, the content, the events, the equipment, and the fan experiences of the entire operation. That is not a restriction, but it is an evolution. the most significant structural shift to the Cleetus brand since the Freedom Factory was built. When a major corporate partner is woven directly into the engine bay of everything you do, the decisions that used to belong entirely to you now have a partner in the room for the conversation. That is the catch. Not that Polaris is going to damage anything. The catch, is that the Freedom Factory is no longer fully independent, and independence was always the product. While the Polaris deal reshapes the business side, Cleetus is simultaneously expanding the racing architecture. Short Track Scene reported he is planning to add a pro-late model division to his Crown Vic race events after purchasing a straight-rail late model from Port City Race Cars. The plan builds that division directly into the Freedom Factory event structure, creating a new competitive category at a venue that already attracts thousands of fans. Content, facilities, grassroots events, off-road experiences, and progressively larger sanctioned racing opportunities. That is the layered motorsports business he is building. One piece at a time. One race at a time. One denied Talladega start at a time. NASCAR has not closed the door. John Probst said not forever. Just show progression first. Steve O'Donnell said race by race. Richard Childress has publicly praised the value Cleetus brings. The institution is not hostile, it is cautious. But here is the argument the sport needs to reckon with. If a driver is learning, finishing races, growing viewership by 12%, upgrading his resume, building a legitimate multi-platform motorsports organization, and attracting multi-year corporate partnerships simultaneously, at what point does the race-by-race framework become an obstacle to the sport's own growth rather than a protection of it? The business case for accelerating Cleetus McFarland's progression is getting harder to ignore with every race that goes by without him on the superspeedway entry list. The normal pattern when a driver gets denied, the story gets smaller. With Cleetus, the denied Talladega entry produced a Polaris ecosystem deal. The 32nd place finish produced a 12% viewership increase. The slowdown produced a pro-late model expansion. Every time this story should contract, it expands. That is not momentum, that is infrastructure. Drop your answer in the comments right now. Is NASCAR being smart with Cleetus McFarland, or are they slowing down the one driver who is actively growing their audience? And tell us what you think the catch inside the Polaris deal actually costs him in the long run. If you want every development in the Cleetus RCR program, the Freedom Factory expansion, and the full NASCAR progression debate as it builds, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is moving faster than the sanctioning body is willing to admit.